So Byron, I'm curious, a little bit of a controversial question, but is the retail store dead?
The retail store is changing. Formats are changing, mix of tenants is changing. There is a bifurcation between the experiential mall and the neighborhood retail. So neighborhood retail is essential. It's services, it's food, it's what you need to get as you are going home or leaving home for your essential needs. And then there's the experiential venue where you're going for your non-online purchases, where you're going to see what is there for you to see, touch, and feel. And the mix of tenants in those venues is also changing to add different product types, different services. You're seeing medical and spa and even automobiles enter into the mall landscape. And that is adding to the mix of experiences one can have when one goes there.
Yeah. So the phrase we use and have adapted as a firm is total retail. So what I'm hearing is we really need to focus on that total retail experience, not just online, not just the direct to the consumer through the internet, but also that store-based experience.
It's really a venue where goods, services, and experiences are being marketed. So the total retail is what is being expended from the consumer's wallet. Mm-hmm. And it's not just food and clothing.
The question that retailers should be asking themselves is, what will the role of my store be? Mm-hmm. Now, there are really three sort of roles. There's a role as a flagship store where I illustrate my banner promise and I illustrate the best of the best experiences. There's a role of a store in which I have a broad selection and I serve the shoppers that come into that environment with some degree of local orientation. And then there's a role of a store which basically looks like a fulfillment center. Mm. So it's important to note that when most of these retail networks were built 20 years ago, when they were designed 20 years ago, they had no concept of omnichannel. And now we're trying to slam dunk omnichannel into this. So the idea of total retail, of the issue of end-to-end, 360 degree, of thinking about the store and the consumer and the technology and the role that overall omnichannel will play, really demands retail CEOs to think about strategy differently. The stores that have no strategic intent to change, guarantee you, will die. They have died and they will continue to die. So unless you think about that all-encompassing change, which is the shopper's in control, you better have the right roles for each of the ways you go to market. Unless you think about that and make that core, we're going to see your sign, we're going to see that sign in the dead banner sign someplace.
When you say it that way, it's no surprise that formats are changing, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting to me as I think about some of the leading retailers, I'm actually seeing some of the doors get bigger. I think the inclination here is that as the retail store becomes a little bit more challenged because of the emergence of e-commerce, but to keep that relevancy and that connection to the consumer, I'm seeing some retailers actually open bigger doors because they're adding the flower shop, the coffee experience, the service delivery, so that it is that overall experience. So it's interesting, and time will tell. Will retail stores get smaller or bigger? And I don't think there's one set answer. It's certainly going to adapt to a more service-based and relevant experience-based situation.
Well, and comprehensive. I think that's what I was taking from Tom's comments, that it is the comprehensive experience from initial customer touch point, whether that's through a mailer or a circular or an online solicitation or an online touch point because they know who you are, all the way through fulfillment.
Mm-hmm. So imagine today our retail model is 90%, 95% merchandise, 5% services. Let's fast forward 5 years and ask the question, how would you as a CEO of a retailer think about a model which is 50% merchandise and 50% services? By the way, delivered across several channels of purchase processes by the consumer.
That 50% of product may be purchased in store, or it may be delivered
exactly
same
right.
day,
Exactly
or,
right.
or in the near term to
Exactly
the
right.
consumer. Yeah, very, very interesting.
Exactly. And by the way, that change won't be driven by just the retailer. It's going to be driven by the consumer.